Here's the problem. You may have the best website in the world. It's optimized perfectly for Google. Everything works. But when you have a consultation with a potential client, if you don't handle that part right, you can lose everything. So this video is going to be all around how to handle the client consultation so they come on board and you get paid. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Therapy Business School. My name is James Taylor. I'm an online counsellor, hypnotherapist, life coach. I'm also a hypnotherapy supervisor. And I'm also a podcaster, a YouTuber and an author. Bit of admin first of all. I've got a Facebook group that accompanies this YouTube channel. It's only for students or qualified therapists. The link will be in the description below. All you have to do to join is answer the questions to get into the group. Okay? It's also called Therapy Business School. So let's get straight onto this. Managing the consultations. I want to give you some things that I've found work really well, because on a client consultation, my own thoughts are therapists should be absolute ninjas at managing the consultation. We're used to dealing with pain. We're used to being on a journey with clients. And a consultation is very much like this. You're going to hear about their pain, their struggles, their issues, their problems. And you're going to be on a bit of a journey with them during the consultation. So let's get through some of the details that I've found work really well, and steal any of them, and hopefully they'll help you. Let's talk about that now. Now, one thing that I might say a lot in this video is when you have a consultation with a client, have a time limit on it. It is not a therapy session, it's a consultation. So maybe have it for 30 minutes, 40 maximum, I would say, but it is not a therapy session. And I've been guilty of that, where I've been on a call with a potential client and it's turned into a therapy session. And that can really work against you, because you may turn it into a therapy session and at the end they say, actually, do you know what? Things just make sense now, thanks very much. And you never hear from them again. So one of the things you're probably going to hear me say is, this is a consultation, not a therapy session. So that's probably tip number one I would bank. Now, when it comes to consultations, I know some therapists who charge for their consultation. Personally, I don't do that. So that's a matter for you. So you're going to have to decide, do you charge for your consultation or do you not? And I would strongly recommend that you do not take on any client without the consultation first, because you've got to see whether you're a good fit for them and if they're a good fit for you. If you're not a good fit for each other, it's then going to be problematic further down the line. So I would strongly suggest always have a consultation first before you take on any client. But here's some of the things that I would say during my own consultations with my own clients. So let's start with number one. Now, I'm online only, but when I was working face to face, I would start off with this same kind of thing. When I meet the client for the first time, or the potential client for the first time, whether it's in person or whether it's online, I am aware they may be feeling apprehensive, maybe a bit nervous, maybe not really know what to expect, not really know what to say. So a thing that I generally do when I meet a potential client for the first time, and like I say, I'm online only, so it's via a Zoom call, I will just say to the client or the potential client, it's nice to put a face to a name. Now, it's a bit of a rubbish joke. It's actually quite true, because it's nice to put a face to a name, but it just settles things down. And I tend to say that, and they might say this, oh, it's nice to, I've only ever seen your face on your website or whatever it might be. It just gets them used to being settled, hearing their own voice, and it's a bit of a foundation stone that we're just going to talk. I would recommend saying, okay, we've got 30 minutes today. And the very next thing I'll say after that is, where did you hear about me? Now, the reason I ask that, it's a marketing strategy. Now, if I'm, for instance, running 2 adverts, let's say I'm old school and I'm running an advert in newspaper 1 and newspaper 2. If every consultation I have and the person sitting in front of me changes, and every single person says, I saw it in newspaper 1, I know the advert in newspaper 1 is working, and maybe the advert in newspaper 2 isn't. So maybe I should stop paying for an advert in newspaper 2 and use that money instead to fund newspaper 1. But another reason I'll ask you is this may be a referral. So let's say I've worked with somebody called John, and John recommends his friend Paul. No Beatles connotations going on here. But let's just say I've worked with John, they tell Paul, and Paul comes along for a consultation. So when I'm asking that question, where did you hear about me? If Paul says, oh, you worked with a friend of mine called John, then I know John has made the referral. John may not have told me, but now I know. Now, if Paul comes on board as a client, this is a thing that I do personally. I send John an Amazon voucher as a thank you. And that way, anyone who's watched any of my videos before knows I like to go for win-win scenarios. So using this kind of scenario here, John gets an Amazon voucher. I get a client. Paul gets help. We all win. And I like win-win scenarios. So that's a thing to consider if you want to do that. If you get a referral who comes on board. If they don't come on board, John doesn't get the Amazon voucher. Now on that as well, if you were to do a gift card like this as a thank you, that's also a taxable expense because it's a referral payment. So just something to consider. So that's number 1. Another good thing about asking a question like that, it gets the client used to talking and it just settles them down a little bit, I found. Now the very next question I'll ask is, how can I help? And then I'll go quiet. And I'll really intently be listening to what comes out that person's mouth in front of me. Because they may be just blurting it all out, or they might just need to get themselves settled and figure out how they're going to explain it to me so I understand. And they, in that talk right there after that question, they'll be telling me what they need help with. And they might be doing it in specific detail with a lot of clarity. You know, I'm in a job I can't stand. I'm in a relationship I can't stand. So-and-so's passed away and I really can't get over it. I'm having a problem with gambling. Whatever it might be, they're going to tell me. So just asking that simple question, how can I help? And that's the way I phrase it. Not what do you need help for? How can I help? So, and you'll notice this with these questions throughout when I go through this video. The way I'm phrasing the question, it's aimed at me working with the client, not the client working with anybody. They've come to me for a consultation. I want to know how I can help. So that's number 2. Now, this is not a therapy session, okay? This is a consultation. So you're going to have to manage the time. And also, because it's the consultation, I would suggest you've got to lead a little bit to get advice or get information from the person in front of you, whether they're a good fit for you, and to identify whether you're a good fit for them. So the next thing I'll generally ask is, how is this impacting you? And then I'll go quiet. Now, I may phrase certain words in that sentence, like, how is this impacting you? Or how's it impacting you? Because you'll probably notice already, clients or potential clients, sometimes when they talk about what's going on, they include a lot of things that other people it's bothering, but they're leaving themselves at the back of the queue. Okay, so again, asking that question, how is this impacting you? I'm being really clear, I'm being quite directive, and again, when I ask the question, I'll go quiet and I'll listen. That's number 3. Question number 4 will probably be something like, is it impacting anyone else? And then I'll go quiet. So let's make up a pretend scenario. Let's say the person in front of you that you're having the consultation with is suffering with stress. So question 3 was, how is the stress impacting you? Question 4 would be, is it impacting anyone else around you? And they might say, well, I'm getting ratty with my partner, I take it out on my children, I can't sleep, it's affecting my eating, I'm not being productive at work. So ask that question, because they're focused on them and you're taking them on a bit of a journey. And now you're seeing, okay, what's the bigger picture around this? The way I think about consultations is, There's a jigsaw that I need to fill in my head to understand the person in front of me. So all these questions are designed to add bits of pieces to the jigsaw so I can get an indication, because I'm still not going to know because it's not a therapy session and we haven't started therapy yet. But just for the consultation, I need to have enough of a picture in my head to know whether I'm the right person or not. So that kind of question, is it impacting anyone else, expands the picture. Okay, so ask that one. Now on a consultation, you do need to take the lead or the client or potential client, however you want to refer to them, you do need to take them on a journey. And that journey starts with the pain points. We'll get to the pleasure points later, but the pain points you need to explore. And this is why I think therapists should be absolute ninjas at consultations, because we're used to working with our clients in painful situations for them. And we're used to not taking it just at surface level. We're used to going a little bit deeper and exploring a little bit more and encouraging the clients to give more detail about this and how are they really feeling and what's behind that feeling and what's behind that one. So we're used to this. Okay, so we're going to stay in the pain points here as we do this. So one of the things I like to ask is this getting better or is this getting worse? And I'll just go quiet and let the person in front of me, the potential client, just mull that over. Now I suspect it's either staying the same or it's getting worse, because if it was getting better, they probably wouldn't be looking for help. Okay, so we're going to intentionally keep the narrative in the pain points so we can find out what's going on. So number 7, we've been in the pain points quite a lot. How has it been for you? Is it impacting anyone else? What's it like for you in that place? How long's it been there for? Is it getting better or worse? Then I transition over to a pleasure point. And I do it just by asking a simple question. What would it be like for you if this wasn't there for you anymore? What would that be like? And I'll go quiet. Now you might have to phrase that in a certain way dependent on the situation that the potential client is talking about. So if they're talking about a bereavement, well then that's not going to change. How they feel may change, but the person is still going to have passed away who they're there to talk about. But let's say it's talking about anxiety, stress, depression, insomnia, eating disorders, self-harm, smoking, addictions, whatever it might be. By asking that question, what would this be like for you if that wasn't there anymore? What you're really doing is inviting the person in front of you to create a mental image in their mind. What would life be like for me? If this thing wasn't there for me, what would that look like? And that makes them transition from pain points over to the pleasure points. What would it be like if I didn't have this? So stay quiet when you've asked that kind of question and give them time to form that mental image in their mind of how it actually would be without this being there. So that's that one. Now when they've come back with a reply, I generally tend to ask the next question, which is number 8. What would you then be able to do? So let's pick a mock scenario. Let's say someone's in a relationship. Let's say it's an abusive relationship and they get out of it. And I ask, well, what would you then be able to do? They might say things like, well, I wouldn't be getting hurt a lot. Or I'd feel better about myself. Or I wouldn't have someone putting me down all the time. Whatever it might be. So by asking that kind of question, you're not accepting the first answer. You're taking them a little bit deeper into that question. And what would you be able to do? So ask that one as well. Number 9, follow on from whatever they say. And what would that feel like for you? Now they may already have answered that in the previous question, but phrase this one anyway and see whether it brings up any more things. So using this mock scenario of someone who's left an abusive relationship, they might tell you what it'd be like and you say, what would it feel like? Well, I might feel as if I've got my freedom back. I might feel as if I've started to get to know me a little bit. They might say something. Now they may not. They may just repeat what they've just said. But what all these questions are also, as well as gathering information for you, it's getting the potential client for them to hear what they're saying. But at the same time, it's actually building this therapeutic bridge, because they may be on one side of the riverbank and you're on the other, and you are actively building a bridge so this information can travel across. Now, the potential client is also building a bridge with you. They can trust you, can they? Can they talk about these things and you don't look shocked or you don't look disapproving? You look like maybe you're a good person to work with. So all these questions are designed, to build this therapeutic bridge between the two of you. But it is still not a therapy session. Okay, this is the consultation only. So remember that one. Number 10. After they finished answering number 9, what would that feel like? I might say, what would be the biggest thing for you about doing this? Now I'm using it that way in particular, not what would be the good thing, what would be a nice thing. What would be the biggest thing for you about doing this? And go quiet. Give them the space to think. They may never have asked themselves that kind of question before. They may never have given themselves permission to ask that kind of question about themselves before. And here they are with you, they've just met you. It's a consultation, so there's a time limit on this because it's not a therapy session. And here's you saying, what would be the biggest thing for you about this? You'd be surprised what comes up when you ask that kind of question. So that's number 10. Now, sometimes, because we're leading the consultation, sometimes we have to encourage more information to come out from the potential client. Now, one of the things that I do, I talk a lot in stories and metaphors. And in fact, this is such a big deal for me. I wrote a book on it, and I'm going to do a shameless plug, and I'm putting it out there now. This is a completely shameless plug. I wrote a book called Metaphors and Stories for Therapists. It actually became an Amazon #1 bestseller. Now, there's one of the stories, there's 42 stories and metaphors in that book, but there's one of the stories in that book specifically that I use on almost every single consultation with potential clients. And I'll tell it to you. And if you want to buy the book, there's a Kindle, paperback, and Audible version. The links will be in the description. Okay. Now, the story is called The Driveway. And I use it, as I say, on pretty much every consultation I have, because it's how I am, it's how I talk, and it's how I think. Because as well as me being able to understand the client or potential client, I want them to be able to understand me and get a sense of who I am and how I work, and am I the right person for them. So here's the story of the driveway that's in my book. And I'll say it as if you're the client or potential client and we were having a consultation. All right? So this is how I'd phrase it. Imagine a driveway of a house, a brick driveway, and there's all weeds coming up through the brickwork. And every time you leave the house, you notice the weeds are a little bit higher, a bit messier, and you keep on telling yourself, at some point, I'm going to have to deal with this. And one day, for whatever reason, you say, right, enough's enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm going to clean this up. And you go to the shed, and you might get a spade and a brush and some bin bags, I guess. And you get rid of all the weeds that you can see, and you put them in the bin bags, and you put it in the recycling. And you've got a bit of a sweat on maybe, and you're standing back and you're looking at the driveway and it looks great, and you're proud of yourself. Look what I've done. This was up here before and now I've got it all down. But there's a problem. They're all coming back because all the roots are still down there. Now, a better way of doing this might be, if we're going to do the driveway, let's go over it with weed killer, and let's go over it again and again, and let's make sure we cover all that we can see. Let's get rid of the roots, because if we get rid of the roots, you can't have any weeds. If you get rid of just the weeds, it's all coming back. Now, it might be a bit longer. It might take a bit longer to go for the roots, but I'd rather do a job once and it's done than have to continually do it every few weeks or a few months. Now, if we were to do this, if you came home one day and there was a weed on the driveway, not only would you spot it straight away because everything else looks so nice, it's weak and it's withered because of the work you've put in earlier. And it's just the easiest thing to go and get the weed and pull it up, make sure you get the roots, and just throw it in the bin and carry on about your day. What do you think? And then I'll go quiet. It works like a charm. And so many times the person in the consultation has said, yeah, let's go for the roots. I'm sick of I don't want to do weeds. Let's go for roots. Let's do it. So use that one by all means. If you want more, there's more in the book. But that one in particular, the people get it. And as well, personally, if I'm going to do a job, I don't want to be doing a job 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, if I can do it once and do it properly. Now, you may have noticed the way I phrased that particular story when I was explaining it. I was using a lot of, if we do this, if we are going to do this, not a case of if you do it with someone else. So I'm still building the bridge. If we do this, if we're going to get rid of the roots, let's get stuck in and do it together. What do you think? Now, that kind of question, what do you think? You're asking what they think of the story, the analogy, about the idea about going for roots. But you're also asking, what do you think about me and you doing that together? And it works like a charm. It truly works like a charm. So feel free to steal that one as well. So let's say, for instance, you've had the consultation and it's timed and it's not a therapy session. The natural question to ask is, what would you like to do? Okay, what would you like to do? Now, if the potential client says, let's get a date in the diary, let's do it, and you're happy that the consultation's gone well, then get a date in the diary and sort out payment and all this kind of stuff. If they say, not too sure, ask them, what is it you're not sure of? This is the idea of the consultation, so we can clear any ambiguity or me answer any questions. What is it you're not sure of? Now, all the information that you've got before wasn't just for them to talk and build a bridge. It was for you to bank. So let's say, for instance, let's pick a mock scenario. Let's say someone has been feeling stressed and anxious for 10 years, okay? And it's impacting their work, and it's impacting their sleep, and it's impacting their own peace and their own relationships, okay? If in the consultation, if the potential client says, well, I'm not sure, I'm not sure if this is the right time, that's when you draw the information from the different parts that they've told you, and you can relay them back. What makes you say it's not the right time? Because you said before that you've had it for 10 years and it's impacting your health and it's impacting your family. What makes you sure now is not the right time to be working on this? So you're doing almost like a slight gentle challenge, because what part of them is saying that? Is it the fearful side that's saying, I don't know whether I want to do this? And another side of them might be, I really want to do this. Well, I'm fed up with this. We need to get moving on it. But maybe the emotional side, maybe the intellectual is saying yes, but maybe the emotional side is saying, I don't know. It's a big hill. It's a big hill to climb. I don't know. It's been here too long. So get clarity from yourself. Get clarity for yourself, I should say, and get clarity from them. Let's talk about it. This is the point of the consultation. Now, I'm also a fan of quotes, and you've probably heard me say many if you've watched any of my other videos. One of my favourite quotes, and I use this both personally and professionally, one of my favourite quotes is, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And I found that to be true. And I will openly say that in a consultation. But I'll expand on the quote. And I'll include, the way I'll describe it, it's me and that person working together. So the way I would say it is, one of my favourite quotes is, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Now, if we were to do this, It's not about me pushing you in the cave in the darkness and saying, see you later. It's a case of us both going in together with torches, seeing what we can see in the time that we've got for that session, and then leaving together. And then later on, we'll go back into the cave. And then we'll have a look around with our torches. We'll see whether we can spot something we didn't notice before. And then we'll leave together. Now, when we've done this a few times over, you know, when I walk in the cave, I know that rock that tripped me up first time. I know that rock's just there. So now when I go in, I step around it so it doesn't trip me up. But what do you think about this? About if we're going to do it, I'm not asking you to do it all on your own. What I'm saying is, if we do this, it's a journey that we're both agreeing to undertake. And I'll go into the cave with you. And we'll leave together. What do you think? This is how I naturally talk. So feel free to steal any of this stuff or delete and disregard all of it. What I've found is by taking the client on the journey from pain to pleasure helps. But there's also another thing that I'll ask, because we have been on a journey from pain to pleasure for the idea of this not being there. Now I might say, what would it be like if this was still there for you in 6 months to a year's time? The same or even worse? What would that be like? Now think about this from an emotional point of view. Being in the pain zone by talking about it, being in the pleasure zone about what it would be like if this wasn't there for me anymore. And by asking that kind of question, I've hinted at a pain zone. What would it be like if you didn't do this? So now they've gone on a bit of a journey emotionally in the consultation. So if there's any, well, I'm not too sure, just ask them. The consultation isn't just for them to ask questions, it's also for you to ask questions as well, because they're getting a gauge of whether you're the right person. Now, if they need time to think about it, here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't say, okay, let me know, best wishes. And because that can be the last time you hear about them or you hear from them. What I do personally, if someone ever asks for that, I'll ask, how long would you need to before you've made a decision? Now, when I ask a question like that, some potential clients have gone, well, 24, actually, do you know what? I've had this for 10, and then they might relay what they said earlier. I've had this for 10 years and it's affecting every part of my life. And you seem like a nice person. And you know what? I don't need time to think about it. So asking a question like that can really help them make the decision. But if they really do want some time to think, ask them, how long would you need, you think, before you made a decision if you wanted to work on this or not, to get rid of these things and to get that freedom that we spoke about? How long do you think you'd need? See what they say. If they say 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it might be, I want to go and talk to my partner, whatever it might be fine with it. The way I'll phrase it, absolutely, before I make an important decision like this, I want to make sure it's the right decision for me. So how long? 42 hours? 48 hours? Okay. Would it be okay then if we arranged a phone call or even a text message, if you like, in 48 hours? And that way, I'll know whether we're doing this or not. And if we are, great, we get a date in the diary. And if we're not, at least I'll know we're not going to do this, and you'll have my best wishes, and I hope it works out. So ask that kind of question, all right? So I've thrown a lot of information at you. Feel free to make notes throughout all of this. As I say, use what you can, disregard what you think is a load of old rubbish. If you want to buy the book, Metaphors and Stories for Therapists, the link will be in the description below, as well the link for the free Facebook group, Therapy Business School. So for the time being, this is James from Therapy Business School, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.